Are you about ready?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. Jenny and I would like to welcome you to the Show Me State journal reading. And we're happy that all of you have joined us. The Writer's Place would particularly like to welcome all of you, and UCM, the two of us have partnered together to provide this event. And not to take up much time, I'm not going to say much more than that, and I'm going to let Jenny say a little something, and then we're going to get started in order to try to get this within the time frame of most AWP events.
Hello, everyone. Welcome. We're so glad you could join us this evening. I'm Jenny Mulberg. I am the editor of Pleiades, along with Erin Adair Hodges. I'm also the director of Pleiades Press. And thank you so much for coming. I wanted to let you all know that closed captioning is available if you click on the bottom of your screen on live transcript. This event is being recorded and will be posted to the Pleiades YouTube page after the event, and a transcript will also be available. And I've also dropped a program into the chat where you can find out a little bit more about our readers and their books. So please check that out. I'm so excited to co-host this event with Mary Frances Wagner of the Writer's Place in Kansas City. We're both coming to you from Kansas City, and we wish we could all be together in person, but we're glad that we're able to do this. I want you all to imagine the clinking of glasses, the excited chatter that happens before a reading, maybe holding hands with your best poet friend, maybe the feeling of breathing into each other's faces. Weird, we haven't experienced that. And sweat and germs and smells and a sea of AWP tote bags getting in our way on the floor. Yeah. So I just wanted to let you all know how much we appreciate you gathering here. And when you do go into the PDF program and learn more about the books, I encourage you to order those books from a Kansas City bookstore. If you are so compelled, I recommend Wise Blood Booksellers, which I'll drop a link to that bookstore in the chat, or your local bookstore. And now I'm going to turn it over to the editors of the Missouri Review, and I'll see you back again in a few minutes. Thank you.
Hi, I'm going to start. I'm Mark McKee, and I'm the managing editor for the Missouri Review. We've been publishing the Missouri Review since 1978 from the University of Missouri in Columbia. And I just want to thank Jenny and Mary Frances for putting this together and making it available to everybody. It is a pleasure and privilege to share this with so many great Missouri lit mags. And with that, I'm going to throw over to our poetry editor, Jacob Griffin Hall, who will introduce two marvelous, stunning writers who are repping TMR tonight. Thank you all.
Thank you, Mark, and thank you, Jenny and Mary Frances. I'm Jacob Griffin Hall, and I'm the poetry editor of the Missouri Review. And tonight I have the honor of introducing two absolutely incredible writers, Jamaica Baldwin and Laila Shetty. It was a privilege to publish their work, and we're really grateful to have both of them here tonight as readers. So Jamaica Baldwin hails from Santa Cruz, California, by way of Seattle. Her poetry has appeared or is forthcoming in Rhino, Prairie Schooner, Guernica, the Missouri Review, and Tri-Quarterly, among others. She is a 2021 National Endowment for the Arts Fellow and currently lives in Lincoln, Nebraska, where she is pursuing her PhD in English at the University of Nebraska-Lincoln. Laila Shetty is a Tunisian-American poet and the author of Deluge from Copper Canyon Press. She currently teaches at the University of Wisconsin-Madison, where she is the Mendota Lecturer in Poetry. Her poems appear in the New York Times, Poetry, Plowshares, Tin House, American Poetry Review, and elsewhere. Oh, I got muted. Sorry, so throughout the readings, I'll be putting links to their work and websites in the chat. So please join me in welcoming first Jamaica, and second, Laila.
Thank you so much, Jacob. Thank you to Jenny and Mary Frances and Mark and everyone who organized this event. I'm so excited to be here and really eager to hear everyone read. I've selected 2 poems, a shorter one-ish and a longer one. And let's just get started here. The first poem I'm going to read is titled Forbidden. Let me go back to my father in the body of my mother, the day he told her, having Black children won't save you when the revolution comes. Let me do more than laugh like she did. Let me go back to my mother and do more than roll my eyes when she tells me, I think deep down in a past life, I was a Black blues singer. My mother remembers the convent where she worked after I was born, the nuns who played with me while she cleaned. My father remembers the bedroom window of their first apartment, his tired body climbing through. It was best, they agreed, if she signed the lease alone. Scholars conclude the myths of violence that surround the Black male body protect the white female body from harm. I conclude race was not a factor in my parents' attraction. I am the product of their curiosity, their vengeance, their need. They rescued each other from stories scripted onto their bodies. They tasted forbidden and devoured each other whole. Let me build a house where their memories diverge. Let me lick clean these bones. Windfall. Sometimes I'm reminded that so many of the references I carry in my body are occupied by white women, and I become lost in an ocean of memories, worlds beneath worlds of ocean that should be kept hidden, as all sacred things we want to keep from being policed must be kept hidden, like language. Once I learned Morse code, spent a weekend at Pigeon Point Lighthouse with a ham radio, tapping greetings to kids in Russia, then waiting for their response in return. When I think about lighthouses, I think of us, eager to reach across borders, or that Sinead O'Connor song about the woman forever waiting for her man to return from sea. But when I think of men who disappear never to return, there's always the image of my father, who made a practice of it. Until leaving was the one thing he perfected. In death, he's become a soft-spoken man, not silent, but quiet. Not a whisper, but a windfall. When he speaks, I'm a kid again reaching. I'm a woman alone in a lighthouse with underwater memories always waiting. Some nights I search my body with a flashlight for signs of a future. Light, we've been taught, is how we find each other in the dark. The omnidirectional lens guiding boats away from dangerous edges, the North Star, the moonlight, a point of reference to cling to in the dark emptiness of night. Dark, empty. The language they ascribe to our bodies is made of the same shadow and warning. It's no wonder they fear us. No wonder my father at 63 was a miracle. No wonder night, like his body, has been riddled with the language of dread. But light isn't the surest way home. We've grown accustomed to the ease of it, as if ease was the point of living, grown idle in our new skins, forgetting our nocturnal ways. Every now and then in a dream, I remember what it felt like to see in the dark, beyond what the light reveals, to see how perfect we all are in the absence of its confident gaze. I've never seen a night unpolluted by light, never loved a body that wasn't held up to light scrutiny, but I'm learning. Last night I ate in the dark, closed the blackout curtains, and touched my body in new ways. Remembered to be grateful. Remembered what Toni Morrison said about impenetrable whiteness. that such illusions are only sinister and lazy. I remembered that shadow is only ominous because language made it so. I swear to you, listening to Nina Simone in the assiduous dark will shatter you on a cellular level. This is real. This is the ocean of what we've lost inscribed in nights unfolding, not an eek, but a bellow, a darkness so rapturous it blinds. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jamaica. That was so beautiful to listen to. I'm just still a little stunned. This is really lovely. Thank you, Jacob. Thank you, Mark. Thank you, Jenny. And thank you, Mary Frances. Thank you all for being here. I'm so happy to be at a virtual AWP. It's a strange time, but I'm glad to be here with you. I'm going to read two poems. I'm going to start with a poem that the Missouri Review is kind enough to publish that I found fitting for this last year, even though I wrote it a while ago, about loneliness. It's called Tea. 5 times a day, I make tea. I do this because I like the warmth in my hands, like the feeling of self-directed kindness. I'm not used to it, warmth and kindness both, so I create my own when I can. It's easy. You just pour water into a kettle and turn the knob and listen for the scream. I do this 5 times a day. Sometimes when I'm pleased, I let out a little sound. A poet noticed this, and it made me feel I might one day properly be loved. Because no one is here to love me, I make tea for myself and leave the radio playing. I must remind myself I am here and do so by noticing myself. My feet are cold inside my socks. They touch the ground. My stomach churns. My heart stutters. In my hands, I hold a warmth I make. I come from a people who pray 5 times a day and make tea. I admire the way they do both, how they drop to the ground wherever they are, drop pine nuts and mint sprigs in a glass. I think to care for the self is a kind of prayer. It is a gesture of devotion toward what is not always beloved or believed. I do not always believe in myself or love myself. I am sure there are times I am bad or gone or lying. In another's mouth, tea often means gossip, but sometimes means truth. Despite the trope in my experience, my people do not lie for pleasure or when they should, even when it might be a gesture of kindness. But they are kind. If you were to visit, a woman would bring you a tray of tea at any time of day. My people love tea so much it was once considered a sickness. Their colonizers tried, as with any joy, to snuff it out. They feared a love so strong one might sell or kill their other loves for leaves and sugar. Teaism sounds like a kind of faith I'd buy into, a God I wouldn't fear. I think now I truly believe I wouldn't kill anyone for love, not even myself. Most days, I can barely get out of bed. So I make tea. I stand at the window while I wait. My feet are cold and the radio plays its little sounds. I do the small thing I know how to do to care for myself. I'm trying to notice joy, which means survive. I do this all day, and then the next. And I'm gonna end with a poem from my book. It came out last year during all of this, because I see Blas Falconer is right up after me, and I took a really lovely workshop with him in the before times, and I wrote this poem during it. So this is for you, Blas. Okay. Called Exegesis. I bled. God didn't want to hear about it. He said unclean, and so it was. He said it is harm, and So it was. Want to hear about it? He said unclean. Once a woman wanted, so he did her harm. And so it was first conceived, a woman suffering because a woman wanted. So he said curse, and then he said blessed. The woman chose to suffer, conceived a God, though she never knew a man. God knows best. If he calls a curse a blessing, then so it is. And he said she was clean. She never knew a man. I've known men, but never a God that bled and lived. But I did. Thank you.
We want to just take a minute to remind you all to stay muted unless you are reading, and that we went out of order, and now we're going to I-70 review followed by Pleiades. Okay, Gary.
Hello, I'm Gary Leckharter, and I'm the managing editor of I-70 Review with Greg Field and Mary Frances Wagner. You know, we straddle the line of Missouri in the Kansas City area and Kansas in the Lawrence area, go KU. The general Kansas City area has always straddled the Missouri-Kansas border. You can check out our website, http://i70review.fieldinfoserve.com, or if you want to just type in I-70 Review, it generally takes you to our website. You can also check out our Facebook pages for more details if you want to do that. Tonight, our featured I-70 review readers are Hadara Bar Nadav and Jenny Molberg. Hadara Bar Nadav is the author of several collections of poetry, most recently The New Nudity, Lullaby with Exit Sign, and Fountain and Furnace, and NEA Fellow. She is Professor of English at the University of Missouri, Kansas City, my alma mater. And then Jenny Molberg, 2019-2020 NEA Fellow, is the author of 2 collections of poetry, Marvels of the Invisible, Tupelo Press, and Refusal, LSU Press, and they'll read in that order.
Thank you so much, I-70 Review. I'm so honored to be here with these fantastic journals and these fantastic editors and all of you, 119 of us. That's fantastic. That's my word for the day. In any case, I'm going to read 3 poems, all pretty short. I'm working on a manuscript that looks at pharmaceuticals. This first poem is called Ligature, just came out. The surgery was open heart. I was cut this way, whipsawed, continent divided. From this, a spectacular wound. Sealed shut, but for my awe-filled mouth. Monitored, machined, dabbed with Vaseline. I wasn't there. I was on the moon, floating in a chemical pool of fentanyl, heavy cloud of black oil rimmed in gold. Awake and frozen, awake, eyes open, then crashing back into the dumb moon's skull. Metal taste like a rusty length of pipe. Every breath ever after, wed to its scar. Frosting thick ripple of pink, pig-colored. I am forbidden to put my teeth on it, and I do. Wound where the light grows, growls, unheals, and remembers what is written there. That's about spontaneous awakening during a surgical procedure. I don't recommend it. Yeah, fentanyl, strange drug. The next 2 are short erasure poems. I was a medical editor for several years, and I looked at pharmaceutical package inserts for medications my family has taken in the last couple of years, and wrote poems based on them. This is from Rosefin, or Safriexone. Infect this page. Infect this page, inject the blood of work. Kill your need to question this garbage art, a written list of all problems of the heart. Someone who is sick is at war, the victim of your normal American diet of disease and pain. Take an axe to your tongue. You should begin to feel better or get worse. Oh, cloudy day. Oh, bloody month. And this last one is Your Mind is Night, from the Tretinoin Gel or Retin-A package insert. Your mind is night. Your eyes open wounds. Your whole face may become skeletal. Fire is your nature. Flame is your friend. Deep inside your skin, New Zealand white rabbits report excessively troublesome feelings of warmth, inflammatory lesions, peeling of the total body surface, a red blistered day. Question your toxic nature. Question the human risk. Death is excreted in human milk with alcohol, spices, and lime. You can't wash it away. Use extreme caution. You are flammable. Thank you.
Thank you, Hadara. I love those new poems so much, and it's so good to hear you and see you, friend. I'm Jenny. Thank you all so much for being here, and thanks so much to Mary Frances and the Writer's Place. I thought that I'd start by reading a poem from my first book, Marvels of the Invisible, which originally appeared in I-70 Review, and which is an homage to Texas, my home state. I've had Texas on my heart a lot lately. And so I encourage you, if you're able and want to help, to donate to a mutual fund there. This is Invocation. Praise my coronary artery, the Red River, and passing it through the country of my heart, the Vena Cava, which is the Rio Grande. Praise the pinon pine, steel-toed boots, what looking out stirs inside. Patches of wildflower that streak the Texas highway, enchanted rock, and the Brazos, God's river arms. Praise its prison songs that sing low like grandfathers, my spleen, gallbladder, and stomach, immigrant hills my great-grandparents crossed, my capillaries, the feathers Oma wore in her hair. Praise the white-tail fawn we found, dead a day, its neck caught between barbs, and praise my father's stethoscope that always hears what beats. Praise the Great Plains, the geode caves, arrowheads carved from bone. Praise my bronchial pathways, breathing their 1,000 branches. The bluebonnet and baby blue, the old Ford pickup. Praise this land, its 2 hills, the house my parents planned to build. What the flood will take from us and what will remain. Praise the elk heads on basement walls, those lords, specters of my family, cast like daguerreotypes in each marble eye. And then I thought I'd read a new poem that is in a new book expected to come out in 2023. And this, thank you so much to the editors of the Missouri Review, because this poem will appear in the Missouri Review. The poem is all one sentence, so forgive me, it's gonna take some breath. Bitch interrupts a wedding. A black and blue pipe vine butterfly noses the collars of orange zinnias, something someone might write a poem about. Someone who isn't a bitter bitch, Or most likely a man with nothing else to do but splooge his sensitive musings down a sentence paved with fancy names for insects or plants or birds. Oh, swoon, red-banded hair streak, butterfly. Oh, sigh and hark the yonder black-eyed Susans, the Rudbeckia subtomentosa, the nighthawk, and Dick Sissel. And I stop by the cave trickle of a natural spring where air is cold as a winter tongue or calyx outstretched hand or some bullshit, sidestepping the bikers who have stopped to smooch in the grotto, my hand over my mouth because I have forgotten my mask. So that now, ambling down the charming Victorian Ozarkian streets, I appear to be in a constant state of shock, gasping into my own hand. And actually, I am in a constant state of shock, as I had long ago decided that the universe could only really push a person so far, that if there was no God, at least the world possessed a kind of omniscient fairness, a cosmic balance, trees leaning into wind, meaning in the goo of the chrysalis that turns to prismatic wings. And with one hand over my mouth and the other on the hiking trail railing to guide my arthritic knee, I think, at least there's this lovely respite, gazing onto the green and dappled light as 40 unmasked faces, weird little forest moons crank upwards, an ivory dress and bridesmaid blue, fall flowers and pews and an aisle. And I hear the minister saying, "And now I pronounce you," as the bride in her sparkling white lace waits patiently for this bitch to stop ruining the moment her life will begin forever. And I blubber back up the stairs, picking a piece of mossy bark from my ponytail, and the sun prisms my arms, and a passing hawk darkens the afternoon for just a moment, and I am young, and I am breathing, and praise Ozark Jesus, I am the interruption, and not the wanted moment that will pass. Thank you. And now I'm going to stay on and introduce Pleiades as I shuffle some papers. Here is the new issue of Pleiades. We're so excited about it. Pleiades is housed at the University of Central Missouri, which is about an hour from Kansas City, where Aaron Adair Hodges, my co-editor, and I both live, and we're coming to you live from Kansas City tonight. There's an extraordinary literary scene, and we wish you were here, but we're glad we're together now. Tonight, we're proud to present two fantastic poets, Blas Falconer and Courtney Faye Taylor. I'll introduce Blas, and then Aaron will jump in and introduce Courtney. Blas Falconer is the author of 3 poetry collections, including Forgive the Body This Failure, and a co-editor of 2 essay collections, the other Latino, Writing Against a Singular Identity, and Mentor and Muse, Essays from Poets to Poets. His poems have been featured by Poetry, Harvard Review, and the New York Times, and his awards include fellowships from the National Endowment for the Arts, the Tennessee Arts Commission, and Poets and Writers. He is a poetry editor for the Los Angeles Review and teaches in the MFA program at San Diego State University.
Thank you so much, Jenny. Thank you to everybody who's brought us together. It's such a pleasure to be here. I'm going to read 2 poems. The first one appeared in the recent Pleiades issue. It is a poem in 3 parts. It's a failed double crown. Only 3 survived. So it's called Forgiven. When the shoulders of the man sitting in front of me are the width of your shoulders, the slouch, your slouch, I think this time to lean into the sting of your leaving, the way you leaned over a sink, the smell of shaving cream, your own face in the mirror, a speck of blood spreading in white foam. We sat there for nearly an hour, me and not you, and the poet on stage who said, a snow globe shaken relives the same shatter. Years later, I can not want you and not want you to have left. I held your waist and we rocked slowly under our studio's one window which glowed with the morning paper you taped there so neighbors couldn't see. News of storms hitting the coast that summer, news of war. One night you stormed off at dinner, shaking your head, your fists. You had your own ghosts. You, who'd held a spoon of ice cream, cold and sweet, to my mouth, singing, "Open up," softly. After Rembrandt's The Prodigal Son. Forgiveness was the moral of the story, and the master's depiction, which has been said to bring those who come upon it to tears. One man kneeling, his shorn head pressed into the other's robes. In the painting, the young man's clothes are tattered, his shoe has fallen off, his bare foot exposed. The light spills on both men from an open door somewhere beyond our view, and through which the one who has only now, after so many years, come through. Thank you. I'm going to read one more. I'm trying to decide which one. I think I'll read this one. One of the challenges this year has been, I mean, I think a number of people have experienced things like this, but dealing with a loved one suffering and going through something, health issues and being apart from them and not being there for them. And so I wrote a series of poems this year about that, and this is one of those poems. It's titled, "Before Surgery, I Remember." Before surgery, I remember how the bone broke, the forearm hung where it shouldn't have, and the boy looked at it with confusion, then horror. Someone gathered ice, someone lowered him to the ground, and we stood, watching, not watching him turn pale and tremble with shock to see the body give in. A man knelt beside him and spoke into his ear so no one else could hear, and the boy nodded, closing his eyes. A calm fell over his face until the place he lay became the place he no longer lay. Now, all day, someone is crying and trying not to. Someone is crying and trying not to. Is there anything else I need to tell you? The doctor asks, before you go under. The knife pierces the skin. Two sides part, open, and tell me, what more can you tell me? Thank you so much.
Thank you, Blas. It's great to have you read with us tonight. To echo Jenny, my co-editor at Pleiades, we're thrilled to see so many people here, so many friends, people we're fans of, very few enemies, so that's nice. We wish that you were here in person, perhaps 2024 or so, and we promise to show you all the best and weird stuff in Kansas City. But until then, we're going to bring you the best in poetry. So coming up next, we do have Courtney Faye Taylor, a poet I encountered reading her poem in Plowshares, and I reached out to her only to find out that she lives here in Kansas City as well. And so we've gotten a chance to work together. That was at the beginning of the pandemic though, so if yet to hang out in person, it's something to look forward to. I'm going to read her bio from, again, our new issue of Pleiades. We'll put a link in the chat. Courtney Faye Taylor is the winner of the 92Y Discovery Boston Review Poetry Prize and an Academy of American Poets Prize. Her work has been anthologized in Best New Poets 2020, Joy and Hope and All That, a tribute to Lucille Clifton, and featured in journals such as Plowshares, Kenyon Review, the Adroit Journal, Gulf Coast Tri-Quarterly, and elsewhere. Courtney is a graduate at the University of Michigan Helen Zell Writers Program and is the poetry editor of Slice magazine. Find her online at CourtneyFayeTaylor.com, and we'll put that link in there. Courtney Faye, hi.
Thank you, Erin, and thank you, Blas, for reading with me and all the readers that have gone ahead. Such beautiful work. I'm going to start with the poem I have in the new issue of Pleiades. And what you need to know about this piece is that every other stanza is a quote from this survey that tests medical professionals' perceptions of pain in Black patients versus white patients. And there's so many doctors and nurses that have this idea that Black people feel pain to a lesser degree than white people. And so I find this falseness interesting. Anodyne. Instructions. In this part, you will be given a list of statements regarding race and health. Some of these statements are true while others are not. Please read each statement and rate the extent to which you believe it is true, from definitely untrue to definitely true. I kept my eyes open when he pierced my nose just to prove I could watch this white man mar me and not blink once. 1. Whites, on average, have larger brains than Blacks. Each time my auntie pancaked a centipede to beige for scaring me, she'd go, "Mean old centipede, you bleed like me." My embarrassment still cringes. Serenading about to be ghost seems a waste. A thin obsidian life is heaving on a time limit you've set. Why sing at that? 2. Black people's blood coagulates more quickly. Because of that, Blacks have a lower rate of hemophilia than whites. I thought septum piercings were African. I thought getting one would make Lucky Dubé an artery through my Saturdays. I survived single mother daughterhood, and for that, I've earned the courage to blast holes through my appearance. I've earned this bodily door. 3. Whites are less susceptible to heart diseases like hypertension than Blacks. There was, for a brief time, a time where children made this sport of sprinting behind me on my dusk jogs. The winner was whoever caught up and slapped my ass first. Once it happened right as I went to wrench my undies from the crack. Me and a blonde touched hands back there, right on the brilliant bluff of my brown sexuality. 4. Black people's nerve endings are less sensitive than white people's nerve endings. My favorite stereotype is they're so violent, not methodically, but ad-libish, a think on your feet type knockout. Though I've never gone to blows, I hope that within me, somewhere along the carotid, my African-American inadequacy could shiv its acrylics into power. But I wasn't mad enough to violence those children. Sometimes if I ran earplugged and vinyl layered, I couldn't feel the winner make a finish line of me at all. 5. Black people's skin has more collagen, i.e. it's thicker, than white people's skin. So the poems I'm reading today are part of a larger manuscript that I'm working on. And at the heart of it, it's about Latasha Harlins, and she was a Black girl living in South Central Los Angeles in 1991, and she was shot and killed in a convenience store by a Korean American woman named Suja Do. And so using collage, essays, playwriting, and poetry, I talk about anti-Blackness and anti-Asian sentiments and how those are really rooted in white supremacy and colonialism. But I'm also concerned with various forms of violence against Black and Asian women particularly. And these last 2 poems speak to that, and they don't have titles. Latasha may have spent her last night of life with 30-some-year-old Jerry, a counselor from the rec center. I read this in the book I was reading about risk and took it tough as tit, hard as whipped LeVar, but shit, had that been me, my mama at home, Vibe magazine funneled to a gnat swatter on her lap, hair bonnet knotted and nails half periwinkle wet, she would have hopped out of bed and whipped the Buick with knees if it meant snatching me from out Jerry's little decorated felonies. But without Black mamas on the night shift of our lives, many of our eyes on men go lilac with that tiny peak bow on the sternum of our undershirts missing. Having, in the nick of time, survived a man's one bedroom, I do admit turning my pelvis to begin it. Since everything that has a beginning must have an end, I let my assault begin so that it would end. I was at his all-white Nikes with bleach and an Oral-B when I found a Puma box where the VHS, Can't We All Just Get It On, flattened some drugstore honey buns. I had agreed to watch it, but had agreed to eat nothing else. And this is my last poem, thank you. At the scene, the Angels PD urged Mr. Dew to, "Sir, lower your hand." During the death, Mr. Dew was asleep in the family's van. The bark of the shot, the snitch of surveillance, it conceives Ali butterfly bee under which Suja promptly dissolves. Knuckles were no foreign performance in their marriage. In mine, wife beaters yank back my wig caps all the time. Above each assault, white Jesus lit his Lucy and I became the cameraman involved. All I could think was Ellis the Island and Mamie the Mast, a ton in our shooting deaths. Blood orange and blood of baby girl whiffed up from the sill, both swearing in patois and smelling lilac good. But then Jesus ashed his cig and clocked out of his shift. He no longer needed women of color to make his point about obedience. He had mammograms and Florida Man for that. A city's #1 killer of people is people who are obedient to their senses, sense outlawed. Now, wouldn't that be trife? Jesus would need us so pathetically then. But in any life, it's never my business why the Savior is the color of a wedding dress and not tap shoes. I'll have my book of light and he'll have his. For killing anyone, he and mammograms have their lofty reasons and our men have theirs, tenderized as they are. But any afterlife, a paradise, is no killer of colored girls, even when pushed. The skies of that sort of nirvana are innocent and inconsolable as we laze forward, inventing simultaneous gods to save us, ornery gods of pan-sex, midterms, safe medications. We create gods without penises, without which they are made only of air and belief, no punishment. Thank you.
Okay, I'm just taking a minute here since we went out of order. We are now back on schedule and our next journal is the Laurel Review. Take it away, John.
Hi, I'm going to talk instead of John. My name is Luke Rolfus, and I co-edit Laurel Review with John Gallagher, and we are located at Northwest Missouri State University in Maryville, Missouri, which is about an hour and 15 minutes north of Kansas City. We have 2 readers for you tonight. We have Gary Jackson and we have Dorothea Lasky. Gary Jackson, born and raised in Topeka, Kansas, is the author of Missing You Metropolis from Gray Wolf Press, which was selected by Yusef Kumunyaka as winner of the 2009 Cave Canem Poetry Prize. He teaches in the MFA program at the College of Charleston in Charleston, South Carolina. And then Dorothea Lasky, born in St. Louis, Missouri, is the author of 5 books of poetry: Milk from Wave Books, Rome from Live Right, Thunderbird from Wave Books, Black Life from Wave Books, and Awe, also from Wave Books. Currently, Lasky is an associate professor of poetry at Columbia University's School of the Arts. So take it away, Gary.
Thank you, Luke, for that introduction, and nice to see so many friendly faces, and it's been a while. Too bad we couldn't all be having a drink right now in Kansas City. Everybody can hear me okay? Right, okay. And Dorothea, I'm so glad to be sharing the stage with you again. We read together back at like Sarah Lawrence, I think, it's another blast from the past. Just to kind of make this kind of an official shout out to Luke and John for their support. I found like an old poem they published back in 2008 in the Laurel Review, and so I thought I would read that first. And it ended up being the first poem in my collection, Missing You, Metropolis. It's called The Secret Art of Reading a Comic. The old comics were never wrong, right always defended by the hero, polished like Adonis. In one moment, Thor is paused in flight toward his foe, the motion line steadying his resolve as he hurdles ever closer. The next moment, Mjolnir, his mystical hammer, slams against the Black Knight's helmet with a thwack in red letters, emulating pain, as Thor announces every move in white bubbles. These are treats, delicious 22-page snacks we swallow, never questioning the action between the panel's gutters and how similar that world bleeds into our own. Take, for example, Avengers #4, where we see the final days of World War II, Captain America and his sidekick Bucky chase a runaway plane. As they grab hold, the plane explodes, Cap yells no, cueing the combustion of smoke and flame. The next panel flashes forward 20 years, and we see Cap preserved in a glacier found by Iron Man, Giant Man, and the others. Hail the returning hero. But what we don't see before the miraculous resurrection is Cap losing his grip on the plane, falling and helpless to watch Bucky fragment into pieces. And how below, the Allies carried on, killing Nazis, failing to notice the body wrapped in the American flag, dropping into the frigid ocean behind. So some things have changed since that poem, right? Like Bucky is alive and well now in all the Marvel movies. So that kind of fucks that poem up. Because he was dead. He was one of those characters that was always supposed to stay dead. I'm glad he's back though. And the first, my first collection, Missing Metropolis, is largely about superheroes and also about, I mean, it's rooted in some autobiography. It's about two Black boys trying to escape the sense of racial isolation through very different modes. But the Law Review is also kind enough to pick two poems more recently that they published of mine that also kind of take a look at Kansas, and in particular, my second book, which is due out this fall with the University of New Mexico Press, is called Origin Story. And in that book, there's this whole series of poems that feature interviews with my mother that I did a long time ago, and I don't want to blab too much about it, but at the time I thought it would be interesting fodder for something to write about. And over the years, it turned into these erasure poems where I took the various conversations we had and kind of slowly erased and figured out ways to kind of preserve my mother's voice. And so I'm going to read just two. One's really short, that kind of explore these strange, I don't even know what to call them. They're all interviews, but they're also erasure poems. They're multi-choral. My mother is kind of the main voice, and I'm very much like kind of a supporting character. So it may be a little confusing over who's talking, but when in doubt, just assume it's my mother. And I had a sister named Gina. I think that's the only other thing to know. Interview featuring sister. This ain't our house. Yeah, that's our house. We put that thing on the couch. That's the water bed. That damn bed. I was pregnant with Gina then. You didn't want to get pregnant again, did you? I don't blame you. There's you and Grandma. She's holding me. There's your Grandma Beverly. That's Easter or something. You got that hat on. Mm-hmm. Looks like you styling. It was slick. Yeah. I had Gina in May. That was April. I was getting ready to have her. Yeah. Before she got her lip fixed. With her wild hair. She looks fat like a butterball. Look at her. Look at you. Why does that happen? Cleft lip. They say that happens a lot in Korea. They didn't tell us she was going to be handicapped. They said she got a cleft palate they could fix, but you could tell something else was wrong. How come they didn't? Grandma knew, could feel, said she didn't have a soft spot. We went to Kansas City, KU Medical Center. They said she's got severe handicaps. They was afraid. She was always gonna be a baby. You could see it. And then I'll read just this one very brief poem. And it's kind of a lot less narrative. It's called Interview featuring Shape-Shifting Mother. I'm a lot of people. Your last year, a would have been, the right age, a dark woman. I can't think. I know when we grin, there it is teasing you. Aw, you're starting to get it. Know what I mean? Hard, like I couldn't understand. Strong, but what about reunion? Lord, come and change my picture. Make us like that again. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that beautiful reading, Gary. It's so nice to read with you again. Thank you for those amazing poems, and so good to be here with all of you, with all these beautiful Missouri journals. And yes, I'm a Missourian lost in New York for too long, so hopefully that'll change someday soon. But anyway, I was just going to read some poems from a new book, and it's kind of about like the climate apocalypse in the midst of all the other apocalypses we're going through, and just poetry's place in it. But I'm not, you probably can't tell from the poems that I'm gonna read. So anyway, okay. The first one is called The Hunters Enter the Scene. The day cast a spell whereby ascending so many stones, I could not leave the center garden where my children lay. Muttering about the hell mouth where a muscular sense of heaven, the bright depressive colors kept me tacked to the wall. In the space of the poem, the dogs will eat the unicorns with their placid gore, calm and sure of themselves like time. Where the bishop with half his body missing holds his right hand, perhaps in something like a peace sign. I ask my lover where did the left go and tell him I love him. His own head is rounded with grotesque metals, his soul a colorless glass. He has conquered his religion with 3 inward fires, and when he sits in the room fits the figure of a king. He is a man of sorrows, made of ferns and tiny succulents, made of wood in the shape of fabric, made of marble in the shape of wood. In him I remember another taking me to the olive tree in the Western Arboretum, he and his mathematics, the refinement of stars, where I thought of the ancient story where the 2 lovers turned into stars, where I imagined a sort of magic of becoming an olive tree for all eternity. For my king, could I be more loving? I bring him my sour oranges, piling and heaping orange fruit all over my body, draping russet red cloth over my endless hair, anointing my body with figs, all just to make him love me. Burning what is between us into smoking, angry holes, his beard no longer red and gray, but Jove-like and neon green. My love, he sits in tiny furs, holding 2 cream serpents. They form a crown around him, and I kneel forever and kiss his crown. What is life but an endless purple fire? I draw my sword up into the air. It's hard to admit cosmic love, if only he let himself be free. The ballet. The dancers in a terribly bright light blue gauze retain the mystery. Skating on a lake, blue and ice, in illusory time where poetry feels inevitable. The terrific clown who lies inside every blue dress, does he see me? Always a star, always a root, horrible auras at the door. But no matter where we start, it all ends in an ocean, hard and fast on the approaching blue dawn. Until then, a deep, low whisper. What is language anyway? An ending that never happens. And this third poem is called The Weather. We never thought it was the weather that wasn't going to be okay, and instead worried about the bombs or our ice cream. We didn't think everything could melt like this, but it did, and so quickly. I didn't think the baby would leap out of the bed when I had done everything to keep him bundled, but it happened right before my eyes. They all said it's your fault, so I apologized as much as possible. No one knew now, but I'd been apologizing since I'd been born. There's a lot to be sorry for, like this poem. I tried to stop myself from writing it, but it's not poetry that's the problem. And when I saw that I'd always be alone, I asked the snow to keep on falling. But I am the kind of person who can't control everything. The earth landed on its head and scurried away from us, and everything fell into a kind of hell of bright colors. Thank you so much. Thank you. Can't wait to hear the other readers. Thank you.
Up next, we've got Bear Review.
Hey, everybody. It's so good to be here. Bear Review for a couple of years now had been really eager to sort of debut at AWP this year, but of course that didn't happen. This is just as good. This is a wonderful reading. So I'm Marcus Myers, co-founding editor of Bear Review. We're an online poetry journal now in our 8th year. We have a fall and spring issue, and we pride ourselves on publishing a variety of voices, emerging and established. We respond to submissions within a month's time, so shameless plug, requesting you send us your best poems. So now I'd like to introduce 2 phenomenal poets. First up, we'll have Ruth Awad. Ruth Awad is the Lebanese-American author of Set to Music, A Wildfire, winner of the 2016 Michael Waters Poetry Prize and the 2018 O Hyena Book Award for Poetry. Alongside Rachel Minnies, she is the co-editor of The Familiar Wild on Dogs and Poetry. She is the 2021 NEA Poetry Fellow, the recipient of the 2020 and 2016 Ohio Arts Council Individual Excellence Award. In addition to Bear Review, her work appears in or is forthcoming in Poetry, Poem a Day, The Believer, The New Republic, Pleiades, The Missouri Review, The Rumpus, and elsewhere. She lives and writes in Columbus, Ohio. And Megan Merchant, who will follow, lives in the tall pines of Prescott, Arizona with her husband and 2 children. She holds an MFA degree in International Creative Writing from UNLV and is the author of 3 full-length poetry collections with Glass Lyre Press, Gravel Ghosts, The Dark's Humming, and Grief Flowers, 4 chapbooks and a children's book. Her latest book, Before the Fevered Snow, was released in April 2020. She was awarded the 2016-2017 COG Literary Award, judged by Juan Felipe Herrera, and the 2018 Bella Rose Poetry Prize, 2nd place in the Pablo Neruda Prize for Poetry, and most recently the Michelle Boisseau Poetry Prize. That's our own poetry prize, judged by Hadar Barnodov. She's the editor of Pyrenees, Fountain, and the Comstock Review. So please welcome Ruth Awad.
Thank you, Marcus, and thank you all for being here tonight. It is such a joy and an honor to be in community with all y'all. So many of my poetry heroes are and have already read. So thank you. And Megan, I'm excited to hear you read next. I'm going to start off with a poem that Bear Review was kind enough to publish. This poem was inspired by the night conversations I have with my poor husband. He always says that like I save the hard-hitting questions for like right before he's about to fall asleep. So I'm annoying as a partner, probably. The wolf tells the magpie, "We cry so the pack will come to us. We tell the version of the story that lets us live with ourselves. Time is a direction, and there is only 1 hour. I reason with myself because I'm not unreasonable. I let the wrong men in. I send storms to my lover, small boxes of them. Come down to me. I've been crying as long as I can remember." I also jokingly say that I've never written a love poem that's not just like miserable. Those are my favorite love poems though, the ones that hurt. This next poem is inspired by my constant searching for things to make sense in a world that is senseless and full of suffering and chaotic, and wanting to understand how to meaningfully contribute to lessening that. Moral inventory. What good is your goodness really, if it is undone as soon as it begins? I flew over an ocean slicked with plastic. I am still afraid of whales, even though I know they're choking on our trash. I had money in my pocket from a job of casual corporate unkindness, gave it to anyone who asked. I want to be a better animal. I want to love what I can while I can. My dogs who caught in the grass, a song that fills my cup and gallops me under a hunter's moon. So what if I snag in her antlers? I once had a body that wasn't a body. It was a voice in a god's mouth. It was the holy vowel. Oh, animal, I thank you. Oh, flank, oh, wanting gut, say it matters. Tell me to begin again. Tell me, and I will. Thank you.
Hello, thank you so much for having me. Honestly, I would be attending this reading if I wasn't participating, because there are so many voices I admire in this one space this evening. So thank you. Thank you to Marcus over at Bear Review and everyone over there for everything that you do. I'm happy to share my poem that was published in Bear Review, and then I'll share one more in what I'm calling my pandemic baby, my book that came out last April. Every day I draw a different bird. A heron, lanky, keen on watching from a far bank. The crow, not swept behind, whispers things I was always meant to recall, but have shed. How to make a slip knot from a bra strap, how to uncork a bottle with a stone, gut a fish with an ink stain. The ravens bend light. Bats tendril the load-bearing walls of my chest. They are pockets secreted in night. Hummingbirds teach me F minor, then F minor breaks me apart. And maybe the bird is the ache, is the joint, and maybe it swallows the room with flight, even when it looks from the window most like a cage. Or maybe I am meant to sustain by envy, the slurry of gnats that funnel from an empty can, the sweet licked all clean. And this poem is from my collection, Before the Fevered Snow, that came out with Stillhouse Press. And I wrote a lot of these poems when my mother was dying. She had a misdiagnosed brain tumor that they said was Alzheimer's. And so she lost her memories and part of her sight before they were able to identify the cause. Forget-me-nots. Today, my mother forgot the word for bathroom while she was in one. She said, dry room. No, wet room. No, tell me. Then what are the others called? I'd like to walk them. At one point, someone taught me a word I've forgotten, a room I was already inside, a marriage, a country, a war, a man's finger cuffed around my wrist. Someone promised it is common when learning another language to lose pieces of your mother tongue, where the bar lights are also a call to prayer, and the flowers aching the field are no less yellow, the spider's bite still poisoned when I cannot say their name. My mother will soon lose my own, and even though I understand the way of things, I will hear the horses in mourning nip at the electric fence, and I will not have the word for shock. Thank you for listening.
Well, I guess we're up then. Hi, everyone. I'm Jessica Rogan. I'm the editor of Boulevard Magazine. We're a nonprofit journal that publishes twice a year, and we're located in St. Louis, Missouri. Our two readers today are Brian Birdlong and Ron Austin. Up first is Brian. Brian is the very recent winner of our poetry contest for emerging poets, and his poems will be in our forthcoming issue. He's also the 2019 recipient of the Meter Family Award from Hopworth Program at the University of Michigan, and a recent graduate of the Helen Zell Writers Program at the same university. Then next will be Ron Austin. His stories have been published by journals such as Pleiades, Story Quarterly, Ninth Letter, and Blackboard Review. And his first collection of linked stories called Avery Colt is a Snake, a Thief, a Liar, has received several honors, including the 2017 Nielsen Prize and a 2019 Forward Indies Gold Award. Brian?
Thank you so much, Jessica. Thank you, everyone, for coming this night, and all the readers who've already read, and also Ron for sharing the Boulevard stage with me. I'm gonna be reading 3 poems, and I guess the one thing to note is that all of them are variations on the theme of the undead. The first poem is one that will be in the upcoming Boulevard magazine, and it's called Black Zombie. Black Zombie. You are everywhere the dark touches. In zombie brown, pupil of the eye, winking sclera. You open envelopes of reality as you walk, brilliant moth blade through suburbia. You stand, a stamp in its corner, America forever. Arrived a lone wolf, sanctioned super predator, in the now, in the it is what it is. Twilight, hard snow shining on the hill, black ice leading to imported stone, wisps of smoke weaving from chimney through bare branches. You gaze into heavenly mansions. You peek into the houses for something lit to steal. Windows shop as the doors hold strong. The locks hold strong. Yet what is precious rushes out the windows, stainless steel, marble on fleek, mahogany, high definition foyers lit from an arc lamp's off-white wish. They wouldn't believe you if you said, in the highest window, someone playing haunted house, Mickey Mouse playing piano to appease skeletons. But it is what it is. The truth on grandma's grave. Your own grave keeps changing location depending on the time of your arrival. You are every time crossing the border into the land of the unafraid. The daemon, they don't know, they know. The couple approaching you on the sidewalk believes in beauty born by distance. The frozen pine, the half moon's tryst with dark greenery. You camouflage then, you background fade, invisible to them in the boundary, the distance dying down and making your way from different places to different places. You all morph into that place by the park, the bang dog, the rabbit in shadow. Nobody can get rid of the space you have become. No one owns this. Next poem, just a slight trigger warning for historical violence. It is called Undead. Undead. Does anyone else, while they're watching the video of the cop shooting the Black man, boy, person on the internet, pause the video right before it ends? I do. It doesn't matter if it's the one with Tamir or Oscar. Sometimes, right before it gets to the end, I'll stop it, then hit rewind. It's always bizarre witnessing the body rise and the cop retreat, climb back into their car before fleeing in reverse. Likewise, it is strangely beautiful to see the snow unread as the bullet exits the undead body and return into the barrel's black, the boy, man, person, now standing, walking. Does anyone else laugh or manage a mischievous smile, imagining the look on death's face? And then the last poem is just sort of a more upbeat poem, ending on a note. It's called Mother's Day at Crystal Banquet, now closed. I dance with my mother beneath the fake crystal chandelier. A group of us swing kampa in circles with our mothers in honor of our mothers, despite our mothers. We radiate out like the plastic floral arrangements adorning each table, our endless fractal orbit, Creole is sonic centerfold. I don't understand what infects me, only know that it does. The iridescence of immortal flowers, the compa band's baritone, blue as Carabella dresses river down a makeshift runway. We have come to pay respect to our mothers, our mother tongue, which speaks, heals, here in our collective magnetic spin, our slew of aphorisms, our revolutionary lilt. All our mothers are here with us, our bodies, and so their bodies raised, mitochondrial. And we have gathered to eat bread and chicken penne, for Tante Raymond to take my arm and lead me to dance, for my cousin Michael to chase me, this too a dance. He catches me, tickles my sides. I am 8 sideways, a small infinity. My laughter is in Creole. I laugh like no one is after me. Thank you.
Hey, you're up, Ron.
All right, I'll jump in. Man, that was amazing. All these readings have been really amazing. So thanks for having me, Jessica. Thanks for the introduction. So I'm going to jump in here and I'm going to read a couple of story introductions. They're just going to be some strange stories. So I'll start off with this one that came out in Boulevard recently. This one is Brand New Plagues. A mean hex mutated every sorry scrap of junk inside Three Kings pawn shop. Merchandise took on nasty, animalistic aspects. Nothing could be salvaged. Best believe me. I'm saying slimy water hoses slithered and shed snake skin. Microphones grew burly gorilla fur. Cordless power drills bucked warthog tusk. Tangled beef guts exploded from microwaves like spring-loaded confetti. Leaf blowers with thick elephant trunks. Braided gold chains flexed tough bodybuilder venom. The sound of old folks coughing crackled from phlegm-spitting bass speakers. Blood and snot splattered clean display cases. Beast stink headbutted my nose. I peeped that repugnant mess and bugged out. I'd been a grunt/bodyguard and more at Three Kings for forever. A ruined pawn shop would ruin me. I couldn't afford to change lanes and start over. I prayed for forgiveness and chain smoked 3 cigarettes back to back to back. But Effie, the high and mighty Miss Boss Lady, she didn't trip. Since Miss Boss Lady was the new owner of Three Kings, she had to prove herself competent. She couldn't flinch dead shit, fist fights, attempted robberies, or crooked ass cops. It looked like she wouldn't let supernatural assaults break her back either. Bargain bin black magic could be copped at any corner store in this time of signs and wonders. Canned sacrificial lamb, extra strength antifungal atonement ointment, and everlasting sardine tin set next to snacks and aspirin. Any chump could cast a brutal spell quicker than popping popcorn, smack enemies with festering boils. Though this shit was brand new. Salty poltergeist swaggered inside big screen TVs. Designer purses pursed unrepentant lips. Brain matter clouded cubic zirconia. Antique revolvers sneezed gunpowder. Disgruntled chainsaws growled threats. Shells rattled, and Effie didn't say boo. She didn't stumble, didn't sweat out her finger waves, didn't drop her clipboard, didn't bust one wrinkle in her frumpy, armor-plated blazer. She kept right on taking inventory with that tired look on her face, as if it was any other Saturday morning, as if beetle wing brooches weren't circling her head. All right, so that's the introduction to Brand New Plagues. And I'm gonna read one more story opening. This story is kind of the one that started this strange story cycle. So I'll read a bit of this one. This is Muscled Clean Out the Dirt. Salesmen from Catacombs Incorporated couldn't solve every ghetto problem. They offered no solutions for gross poverty, quick death, or the weariness that congests heads and chests like a brutal cold. But they did offer one product that could restore blighted North St. Louis neighborhoods: Geb's Magic Red Bricks. Nobody asked how those salesmen could haul wooden carts heavy with hundreds of bricks, bulky arms straining under cheap suits, halos of sweat adorning bald heads. Nobody asked why only the finest women could buy a brick. Nobody asked why the bricks were irregular, some of them bloated with muscle and green veins, some of them sporting coarse pubic hair, all of them pulsing with the faint heartbeat of a wounded animal. Nobody consulted books of the Bible, divine explanations from prophetic dreams, scattered chicken bones. Nobody asked how the bricks could flex and twitch. So the finest women spent the whole summer commanding their husbands, brothers, uncles, sons, and grandsons to commandeer the remains of vacant lots and condemned houses, slice machetes and hatchets through bramble and boughs of honeysuckle, bang sledgehammers through crumbling walls and cracked foundations, cart off rubble and junk, dump shovels in hard earth, and sow Geb's magic red bricks where the land had been raided, salted, turned to soot. The most shrewd men wiped sweat from their chins and told the women, y'all done really lost your damn minds this time. You got us out here in this heat, moaning and groaning, humping and bumping, and for what? Some old hoodoo abracadabra bullshit. Call us some sad sorry bastards, but y'all don't listen no way. God bless and count yourselves lucky. We love you. And those same shrewd men shut the hell up and gawked when they felt the earthquake and saw brand new homes muscle clean out the dirt. And that's it. Thank you.
We've got River Styx up next.
All right. Thank you. Can you hear me? All right. My name is Jason Lee Brown. I'm editor-in-chief of River Styx. I'd like to thank the Writers Place and Jenny and Mary Frances, everybody involved. This is a pretty big project going on here, but we love it. We love Midwest. Everybody knows that I love the Midwest, Missouri. So I really like this reading, and I'm glad you put it together. River Styx has published our award-winning journal of poetry, fiction, essays, and art since 1975. We publish semi-annually, host 2 reading series, sponsor 2 contests, our International Poetry Contest and our Microfiction Contest. We also host workshops, which are now shifted to online manuscript critiques, obviously for reasons. And as a local arts nonprofit, we also are committed to the community and strive to share the joys and education and merits of creative writing in the St. Louis area, because we are out of St. Louis as well. We are pleased to present 2 contributors from our recently released double issue with a Kansas City connection. I would love to hold up the double issue, but bulk mail, I don't know what to say about. There's literally people in California getting our issue, and I can't get it in Illinois, so I don't get to hold one up. But we have 2 good readers, John Mosner and Aaron Saxon. John Mosner received his MFA from the University of Missouri, Kansas City, and serves as the Readers Fellow at Literacy KC in 2017-18. His poems have been published in Flint Hills Review, Plain Songs, Natural Bridge, and I-70 Review. He lives in Kansas City. And Aaron is a Kansas City native who teaches creative writing at Literacy KC, a nonprofit that helps adults improve their literacy skills. Her work has appeared in Potomac Review, Ekphrasis, Mulberry Fork Review, and elsewhere. She earned an MFA from the University of Missouri, Kansas City, and I'm guessing she might be the furthest away from anybody that we have reading for us tonight. So please take it away, John.
Thank you, Jason. Thanks to Jenny and Mary Frances for setting this up. It's really great to be able to read with so many people that I have connections with and a history with, especially since attending UMKC and being involved in the Writers Place. Here's the issue. We got it here in Kansas City, so it's out there. This is the poem that was published in that issue. It's called Attention. Before she forgot who I was, Grandma Kathleen told me about a button on my brow that could take away my anger. I was 6, cradled in her blue-veined arms, steaming from my brother's cruel joke. I don't remember what he did, but in her brick front room, she pressed her thumb between my eyes and dimpled its pad into my smooth skin. My ear to her chest, she whispered a spell. My mind was flustered by the mysteries of touch, like a door suddenly there, opened by the gentle attention of her curved thumb. This next poem is called Whitewood. Your whitewood bed frame came apart with such ease. It seemed did not feel your weight these last 24 years. You left to fetch a mallet in the basement. It was not needed. The metal wings slid out of their holdings like the lifting of a young weed in soft soil. Making room for your father's hospice bed, a chair in the corner for an overnight vigil. We stacked each post and bar against the wall, no longer relying on the others to stand. The date etched in the back of the headboard, not long before you were put together, piece by piece, each ball joint sunk gently into each socket, as someday we each will pull apart with ease. Two more real short ones for you. This one's called Harmonia Axirides. The curved shell of an Asian lady beetle, bleached white, bent the afternoon light around itself on the sill. Its spots the color of dried blood on an old shroud. A quiet porcelain grave, it still maintained a gloss like the glaze of an ancient urn, thrown, then fired in the early southern sun. It died looking out onto the wild vines that flexed the chain link in our backyard, like an old woman asking to move her bed so she could look out the window. I thought I'd read this last poem for you. It was first published in Natural Bridge, which sadly is no longer in its own as a print journal, but it is part of Boulevard as they're online. So I thought, why not read this to celebrate that? The Last Fourth. The X-ray glowed, an ink swell like blooms bursting in a black sky. Your cough, percussive blasts from the black tar drum of your lungs. 30 years ago, you lit one, glowing in the haze on Avenue I, your little girls running around with sparklers shooting from their hands. The black sky crowded with the unfolding of hundreds of fireworks, like an X-ray hanging far from that night. Thank you.
It's such a pleasure to be reading with so many talented people. Am I up? Can people hear me?
You're good.
Okay, thank you. It's such a pleasure to be reading with so many talented poets this evening. It's about 3 a.m. here in Spain, so I'm a little out of it. I'm glad I got to stay up and hear everyone. And also see some familiar faces. John Messner, that was amazing. That was great. And also Hadara Barnadav. And thank you to the Writer's Place and to River Styx. I'll be reading two short poems. The first one I'm reading here was published in their recent issue. And it was actually a poem I wrote in one of Hadara's classes. It's called Stargazer Abed. I wake too early, sweating out wine in the dark, while you snore like the ocean against the back of my skull. I never remember where your wife flies to see relatives, giving us so much without knowing. My fingers stretch to brush the wall dividing your room from hers. The slick plaster she slaps to wake you when you scream in your sleep. Last night, I found her jeans in the bathroom hamper and checked the size. You don't understand how I could ruin. A note in her medicine cabinet, a strand of hair nestled in her comb, could crush this house to ash. But I wait, still as another pillow, until you wake. You send me home, but your smell sticks against my throat like glitter. I memorize it, could find you sightless in a crowd. You say sorry, with hot pink lilies on my doorstep. Your favorite. You never want to know mine. Petals crack open and choke my bedroom, shake saffron powder onto the nightstand, eclipse you. I search my arms for your signature, sniff until sleep comes. In tonight's dream, I scrub my mouth out with her toothbrush and spit our blood into the sink. This next poem is something that I wrote very, very recently. It's called After the Blizzard. He found the hare orphaned, hyperventilating under an olive tree. We'll name her Comfy, he told me. Like comfortable, I ask. No, comfy, like confinamiento, like confinement, like this shit. A wad of trembling fur with ears like arms surrendering, the pale eyes insane with fear. The hare sucks goat's milk from the finger of a latex glove. Learns to hop on the coffee table amid glasses of vermouth. Queen of this house, Comfy's cage stays open. She kicks and chews, carrots and herbs, bounces across the butter yellow sofa, discovering and rediscovering each warm corner of tile. One morning he tells me, the animal is sick, look. He dangles the fidgeting leveret in the light of the kitchen window, the soft down of her neck ripped out. There she is pale pink meat, and the left leg chewed down, tender ankle exposed, the bones so small, like a drinking straw. She is eating herself. We exchange grim looks and think of leaving her under the olive tree, though we don't say it. We never know if this disease is from the body or the brain or the house or the past. But who doesn't understand the warmth of self-mutilation when you do nothing but tremble alone? But she stops tearing herself apart, and we breathe so well because we've had enough of bad news. We take our mascot to the sunshine of the enclosed patio where she leaps and leaps in circles across the vibrant astroturf, her perfectly round yellow-brown eyes watching us and the cement walls and the clear blue sky like it's all pure threat. Thank you.
Finally, we have new letters.
Hi, I'm Christy Hodgen. I'm the editor of New Letters magazine. We've been publishing at the University of Kansas City, Missouri, Kansas City since 1934, and are known for publishing early work of J.D. Salinger and E.E. Cummings and Marianne Moore and Pearl Buck. But in the year that I've been here, I would say the best part of the job is wading through that slush pile and discovering new and emerging writers or writers that are new to me. And I'm so thrilled to have had the chance to publish Rebecca Faust and Leanne Strauss, who are representing us tonight. I think Leanne's reading first. Leanne is the author of 3 books of poetry, Leaving Eden, Frankie Alfredo, and All the Ways You Still Remind Me of the Moon, all published in London, where she lived for the better part of the last 20 years. She's currently seeking a publisher for a new collection, Breathless, and completing a first novel. She now lives in New York City, and I'm going to put the link to her books in the chat, as well as Rebecca's books. Rebecca Faust is the author of 7 books, including Only, forthcoming from 4-Way Books in 2022, with new poems in or forthcoming in New Letters, the Hudson Review, Narrative, Plowshares, and Poetry. Recognitions include the 2020 Pablo Neruda Prize, the C.P. Cavafy and James Hurst Poetry Prizes, a Marin Poet Laureateship, and fellowships from the Frost Place, Hedgebrook, McDowell, and Sewanee. I'm so thrilled to have both of them with us here tonight. Leanne?
Thank you. Thanks, Christy. And thank you, Mary Frances and Jenny. And thank you, everybody who's read tonight and Rebecca, who will read. It's been a real treat to listen to all your poems and stories. And I'm really pleased to be representing New Letters here this evening. I'm going to read 2 poems. One was in the summer 2020 issue of New Letters, and there's one coming in the spring issue. Listen more, talk less. That was the advice she wanted to give to the daughter of her friend, she said. It's the advice I wish someone had given me at that age. The advice I would give myself if I could go back and listen. I couldn't resist. It was the day after tax day, and the insistent wind that had stormed the town, howling and whistling and tormenting the windows up and down the avenues, like the pack of wolves bedeviling the caribou on our planet. I had watched that episode with the children before bed, and I didn't know whether that was what woke them or the storm, louder than the avalanching crashes of the spears of ice 80 stories high, and the stacks of snow so dense and white they were blue and look like meringues just when they get that creamy sheen and you're supposed to stop beating them. Shearing off the heights all night, roiling the waters off of Greenland. And this morning Notre Dame like the Twin Towers on the cover of all the papers. But there was no switching her off her track, not a chance of derailing her. She blinked once, like an owl thinking about a mouse, and barreled on, past the models of commuters artfully positioned on all the local platforms. Think of all the trouble I could save her. But all I could think of were the parents going to jail for sending their children to the Ivy Leagues. Why did that make me think of the gulag? And who was going to save them? And the krill that live off the algae that lives in the ice. And how food chains are a kind of chain, but one that shouldn't be broken, while there are others that are more like Blake's manacles or chain reactions, nuclear and harder to break. Which reminded me of the charge of the Light Brigade, doomed as Tennyson understood from the beginning. All the endless analysis is good, as you like to say, but where does it get you? I wanted to say something when I saw her over spring break, she was saying. I was half listening, half wondering whether it was something to do with the intersection of linguistics and biology, the way the shape of our words fails to fit with the shape of our ears, perhaps, that makes us incapable of hearing anything said directly, as the crow flies, an expression which means we know it's impossible, or the way track is laid along parallel lines, and whether they used to fit better, like maybe when we spoke Sumerian. And there's been some kind of degradation alongside the evolution that so many people assume is progress. Or whether it's just communication's natural proclivity toward all forms of deception, the way we hedge our emotional bets, but not just our emotional bets, the way some forms of survival are flatly self-destructive, and whether humans are the only ones for whom that is true, and if only we were better at making use of it. I keep remembering the time my late husband threw the Scrabble board across the bedroom, she was saying, how for weeks after I kept coming across those unlikely tiles in the craziest of places. A Q deep in a corner in the pocket of my bathrobe, an E nestled on the edge of the windowsill. There was even a poor little W that had landed somehow in the dust and folds of the curtains I only found years later on the phone with my mother, telling me again how nothing I ever did surprised her. And this is the second and final poem. I need to learn to lie better. My grandmother was the Barnum and Bailey of liars. I could hear her head shaking when I told Frederick what I really thought about his grandmother, who had waited 13 lucky years for her gorilla fiancé, his grandfather, while he hid out in the jungle, coming dangerously close to the catastrophe of her own spinsterhood. She must have had some idea what he would have done to her if he hadn't. I still say he ought to have known better, since I had already shown my hand when he told us about his uncle driving backwards through the Amazon for 7 hours at night. He had just learned, Frederick told us, that my aunt, his fiancée, was ill and his car was stuck in reverse. But when he got there, it turned out she had nothing more than a head cold. That reminds me of the one about the car trying to back out of the multi-story garage. There's an exit, the attendant shouted, pointing to the signs. I know, the car cried back, but that's not the same thing. If you are facing the ocean, my grand equivocator of a grandmother once said to me, we were on our way to San Francisco together in the early years of her widowhood, and she was contemplating the frozen sea of silent clouds out her window like an aerialist gauging her leap into the arms of the approaching trapezist. The waves can't catch you while you're not looking. But if you don't want to be knocked down by the big waves, I reasoned, you can just step back up onto dry land. Ah, she said, you were always too smart for me. And she squeezed my hand in the way that meant I was her favorite. Thank you.
Rebecca?
Hi, everybody. Thanks for hanging in with me till the bitter end. I am really happy to be here today. Thank you so much for inviting me. And these are just wonderful poems. I'm honored to add mine to the mix. Thank you to Mary Frances, Jenny, Christy, everyone who did all the work I know went into putting this together. Thank you to the tech saints who are running this thing, so I don't have to think about that. And thanks to you all for listening. I'm going to read two poems that are forthcoming, thank you, in the New Letters Journal. And then if there's time, I'll go ahead and read one more poem. The first one is a poem about aging and fragility. And the only thing you need to know for this poem is that a peen refers to a ball peen hammer. Crack. It takes just a nick to break the skin of me, of you. One crack to break what binds the book. One ping from a chain swung at the right height and speed, flicked at the weak spots, atomic knot, a chain wound round the palm of someone who roams the rows of cars in the night lot. One flick of the wrist to smash the glass, then he's in, and what was whole will lie in chop shop parts. It's true too of hearts. One tap of the peen, just so, will smash the pot. It's not what you think. Drink deep while you can, for the glass will break. Your boat will spring a leak. All it takes is one window cracked, then wedged wide. Even in dead calm, waves will rack you bow and stern, and you'll be lost. Lost is the cost of the ride. It's true your boat was born a wreck, and how brave it still sails for a time. But once you have to bail, you may as well give up. I asked my mother how stay strong through the years. The trick, she said, is not to crack. Be the book with each page bound, not cut. Be the boy with the chain. Be the chain, its arc, its grace and speed. Strike where the sweet spot spins. Be the light that gleams glass shards. Be waves and wind. Be lithe and fast, be strong. Most of all, be young. And don't fall or get sick. Don't crack, she said. It only takes a nick. This next poem is one of my first pandemic poems, and I guess it's about capitalism and greed, but it's also about loss. And for a time we lived. And for a time we lived like gods. We said water, and there was water. We said light, and there was light. So much light. At any hour, photons harnessed and pressed into service. The water was pure, except in certain neighborhoods where it was poison. We wanted for nothing. We had work and we had play, amazing play, actual plays on a grand scale before town-sized crowds. There was fresh fruit out of season and sustainably caught fish. Our wish was series command. Supply met demand so far as we knew, and if we lacked bread or wine, We were born for more in our cars that kept our feet from touching the ground. Born so fast it felt like flying. And there was actual flying then, too. There was always more in profusion. There was, yes, confusion and general alarm, the usual armies clashing by night, wildfires, derricos, earthquakes, wars, cops killing young black and brown men in the streets, occasional curfews that taught us to rise and retire with the light. We had bread and circuses streaming endless new episodes. We had devices for everything, electric combs and toothbrushes, robot vacuums, GPS, laptop panopticons from which we viewed the world at a great remove. And aside from all that, birches silvered by moonlight, cherry blooms like a wedding, live oak and owls blinking on telephone poles. Our screens were windows and also barrier and shield. Terror was distant and noiseless unless the sound was turned on. Commerce and culture and chaos rolled like a benevolent tsunami across and through our mostly green lands. We met in large groups then, and often, touching each other's faces and hands. And that's enough. I'm at my time. Thank you so much. What a wonderful evening.
Thank you all so much. This has been a wonderful reading. I'm not sure what's going off. Can all of you hear that? I'm not sure what that is. Would everybody please mute? Because I have no idea what that might be. But I do want to make a couple of final comments before we close tonight. I want to thank everybody who participated. It has been a wonderful reading. We've seen some really great poets read for us tonight. And I want to invite you for more on Saturday. And on Saturday at 7, we will be having the Kansas City Poets reading. And this will be an open mic, well, sort of. It'll be Greater Kansas City Poets reading a poem each. And so we hope that you will come and participate. And I just still don't know why that's happening, but anyway, that gives you an idea of the names of some of those people who are coming. And Jenny, we will post this recording on our Facebook page and our website. And it's been a great partnership with UCM. So Jenny, would you like to close us out?
Yeah, thank you, Mary Frances. Thanks to all our wonderful readers. You were so inspiring and such a balm in this time when we can't be together. But thank you all for coming, for being here, for sharing your words and sharing this space with us. And we'll hope to see you Saturday. Good night, everyone.
Good night, everyone. Thank you.